Namaste Bharat. Hello, good afternoon, India. This is me, Preeti Chaudhary, on an episode of LinkedIn Live. I am launching happily LinkedIn Local Anand today via LinkedIn Live. Just to quickly put things into perspective, LinkedIn Local India is a LinkedIn property. It is an online to offline meetup concept, an inclusive meetup concept for professionals and students. And I'm very happy to launch LinkedIn Local Anand here today, which will serve Greater Gujarat into the cities of Ahmedabad, Anand, Surat, Vadodara, and everybody else in between. And what better way than to have local personalities from Gujarat being here with me today? Couple of quick things. This is a dialogue and a conversation. Please derive the maximum value out of it by putting in your queries and comments into the comment section of this LinkedIn Live. Once again, Namaste Bharat, hello India. This is your host Preeti Chaudhary saying hi to you, launching LinkedIn Local Anand. Today's proceedings will be done by my dear friend Colonel Amit Verma, who will be your host and moderator of this particular panel that we have put together. The topic for today is very relevant and it is strategic reset by HR leadership during crisis. So, to get the conversation started, please allow me to welcome into the stream, first of all, my dear friend and host and moderator of this session, Colonel Amit Verma, and our three guests, starting with Dr. Ankita Singh, then Vikas Dua, and my dear friend Vikas Bansal. So, quickly to say, friends, thank you very much for being here today. My dear friend Amit, it is over to you. Let's get the conversation started. I'm really excited to hear what the panel has to say on such an important topic. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti, and thank you to our panelists for joining us today for this very important discussion. Strategic reset. We are not talking about minor activities or tactical actions here. We are talking about actions that will impact business in years and decades to come. Every challenge that we have seen has given us an opportunity of coming out stronger. Today, we will not talk about what the problems have been, how the world has seen an event which has turned the entire century on its head. COVID 19. That's the only time I'm going to be taking this name because it ends here. The leaders and the strategic thinkers who are with us, they will be talking about how they will get you out of this territory of despair and problems. From here on, in the strategic reset, we find out ways and means of getting things done and getting your life restarted. Let's reclaim our life. We have been at home for 6 months, but that doesn't mean we have stopped growing. Every one of these leaders has pivoted with such smartness and technical alertness that it's a model to follow. And I would love for them to share their life with us. And then we will be looking forward to questions coming in from you. We already have a few questions which came in. One is addressed to Vikas Dua, one is addressed to Dr. Ankita, and one is addressed to Vikas Bansal. I think people are keeping it very cool and keeping it last minute to surprise our speakers. They will not get surprised, gentlemen and ladies. They will come out with their guns blazing, and let's look forward to a great session here. We will be starting off with the introduction of our speakers now. I cannot introduce them in the short time that is available to me. But if we are on LinkedIn, you do know that Dr. Ankita is a prolific speaker and engaging with the HR industry as a strategic thinker. You would find her on multiple platforms, and her ability to connect with the audience and the topic at hand comes from her vast experience. We have Vikas Bansal with us. He is a corporate leader turned author come speaker now, and he is coming up with new ways of surprising with what new innovations he can come up with. He is also a published author and a quite a successful one at that. We are looking forward to his second book. Coming on to Vikas Dua, I met him when he was also making his pivot in the corporate world. And it is so heartening to see now that he is an established entrepreneur. I always mispronounce Attayn, but that is the chief mentor where he is making a mark in the HR industry, and especially when it comes to young professionals and students. And those are our core audience today who can listen in and understand that no challenge can go unanswered. We'll be starting with Dr. Ankita for your views.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks for this opportunity. Very, very pertinent topic, and as you rightly said, because you mentioned you would not be talking about that word, so I will not prompt it. But yes, when we talk about strategic reset, I think it is again a continuous journey. When we talk about crisis or change, it has to be dealt with a similar or a close approach. When we talk about HR and their approach towards a crisis or crisis management, I think the first thing, according to me, would be connecting the dots well. So to lead business and people together, it becomes really important. Finding the balance becomes the base. You can't claim to be taking care of people and not thinking about business, because during this scenario or in past few months, I've heard from so many people talking about, you know, people taking care of employees, but we missed somewhere talking about business. So I think there has to be equal balance at the time of crisis. You may have to put in little extra or probably more extra effort somewhere, but still the balance should not be disturbed. When we talk about the crisis, I think my strategic approach, I would define it in the form of care. I don't think that is something that we invented now. We have always been doing it. We have always been following it, and I have seen that no matter how things are changing around you, how crisis is impacting the entire thing, you manage to sail through. And I'll share that here. So when I talk about that concept, it's named as care. When we hear the word care, it immediately takes you towards employees. But why it is so? Because people should be able to understand, adapt, accept the concept or approach that we are trying to push in. They should be able to understand and relate that yes, there is something for me as well, but at the same time you're taking care of business too. So care stands for communication, where we all know those four w's and h. So why, what, when, where, and how it will impact, why we are doing certain things. I think communication becomes the core. HR or the organization. Obviously, I think if we go back to our management days, we read the simplest definition of HR, that it bridges the gap between the organization and the employees. So you are practically communicating and connecting with employees. It's your primary role to understand what management is expecting from you, and at the same time you are able to take care of your employees, and you are able to manage or create that base or impact. Second is adapt. Systems have to be agile. We know when we talk about crisis, we know when we talk about change, we always have to be hopeful. But how do you become hopeful? Just sitting back and thinking that things will change. This is a bad dream. This will be over soon. You can't just sit back and relax. But your system, which is with respect to the organization as well as people, it has to be more flexible. It has to be more adaptable, more adjustable. No defined contingency plan will help organization deal with unexpected situation like what we are facing now. So that's the second point, which is adapt. Third is respond. I think recently we got a call from our one of our developer, and he was asking, so where are we headed now? What the company is doing? How are we going to deal with the current situation? And when I spoke to the manager, I said, this is what the employee wants to know. He said, but he's just part of a project. He's part of that 10 members team. How does it matter? He should just focus on his work. He should focus on his salary. Everything is set. Why is he worried about the bigger picture? I think that's where I think when we talk about strategic reset, or we talk about strategic planning, it becomes really important for HR to understand that when you talk about that bigger picture, each individual is forming that picture and they are probably the smallest or a smaller part. The entire thing should be communicated, and it should be communicated at the right time. So the way we are planning to respond to a situation, be it a crisis or a change, each employee or bigger system should be knowing where we are headed and what we wish to do. And the last of care is empathize, which I'm sure each one of us have been talking about throughout the day. We know that in a situation where we go for a small change, or when we are in a similar situation where we face crisis, everybody is anxious. Individuals, employees, business, everybody is anxious. HR today, when we talk about strategic approach to define or redefine, I would say our approach should be more personalized than generalized. Today, with the help of technology, we have access to real time data. We have everything right in front of us. We keep talking about people analytics. We keep talking about having everything right in front of us all the time. I think it's high time when we should be using that, and we should cater, or we should approach to an individual, or to a business, or to any stakeholder with a more personalized approach. Compassion should be evidently visible and valued. So, according to me, I think that's the strategic approach which we have taken in the time of crisis, when we change anything, or in regular scenario as well. And looking at my experience with 16 years with CIGNEX Datamatics, I think no matter what the situation was, if we were able to keep the base or the fundamentals very clear, if we were able to follow the scare concept, we were able to sail through, and we remained hopeful. We knew that this is the phase which will pass by, but we will still shine back, and we'll come back with the more zeal and aptness.
Thank you for that. That was an awesome start. And Vikas Bansal, what do you have to say for this?
Should
Vikas, can you check if you're mute, please?
Hi. So, so I believe Ankita has really set the context, and in terms of what the organization needs to be doing. I will speak more from the other aspect. So now, having traversed that journey of being an employee for nearly 2 decades and now being an entrepreneur for less than 2 years now. So I always think about one sentence, and this sentence has really given me power all these years. And it's a very simple sentence. It says, in every adversity, in every adversity, there lies a seed of opportunity. And I have really lived by this sentence. When we talk about whatever so-called the crisis or the challenges that people faced over the last few months, now organizations really have done their bit to keep employees, let's say, connected, to empathize, as Ankita spoke about, being more empathetic to the employees' needs. But ultimately, my friends, it comes down to you. It boils down to you. So ultimately, you're the one who's playing that game. So the organization can take care of you, but only to the extent it's ultimately what your attitude is in terms of these crises. See, again, you all know this famous sentence again, attitude. When we talk about attitude, so it's not what happens to you, but how you react to the circumstances. Now, as I told you, I will be talking more about the individual now, because we've heard enough about what the organizations need to do. But many times we shun away from our own responsibilities. What as I, or what as me as an individual needs to do to overcome this challenge. So sharing a small example. So I was also in a lockdown stage like most of you were. For the first 2 or 3 months, I really didn't have anything to do. I could have really watched Netflix, binged on good food. That's what I did for the first 2 weeks, in fact. But ultimately, there comes a time when you need to take onus. What do you need to do? So when our Prime Minister came in for lockdown 2.0, एक हम 14 दिन के लिए दोबारा बंद करें. Now, you need to decide as to what are you going to do sitting idle in your house. So I took up the ownership. I had never ever written even a blog in my life till about April this year. I happened to write a complete book. Went on to do pretty well. Now, I'm not trying to glorify my book per se, just trying to tell you what I did in terms of these challenges, because I took up the responsibility. Now, had I done that if I was an employee, because let's say Ankita set the context of she She handles people management. I mean, she is the, let's say, CHRO of a big organization. Had I done that as an employee as well? Yes, I would have. Because ultimately, it's my life. It's what I do with my life that counts. The organization can only take care of me to that extent. They can't change my attitude to how I look at things. So that was the first pivot which I had for my life. In every adversity, there lies a seed of opportunity. And secondly, I was more of a person in the physical domain. I've been able to transfer or transpose myself to the online domain. Now, again, that's again boiling down to you. Can you really harness your skills? Can you harness your talent? So that's a question to all of you on this session, people who are watching right now. Can you look at your inner strengths? Can you look at your inner talents? What is it that you can really look inside, that you can turn this adversity into an opportunity? So that's the thought I want to start off with. Right. Thanks, Amit.
Thank you for that, Vikas. And now coming on to Vikas Dua. We have heard what the organization wants to do. We have also heard what the individual should do. But I also need to add here, the easiest way to lose your head in a crisis is to overthink it. And that is probably what has happened. People have overthought the crisis. The lockdowns went on forever. And we are back now where we should have been much, much earlier. So what do we do now, Vikas Dua?
Sure, Amit. Thank you so much for having me as part of this panel. And congratulations to LinkedIn Local and you for the launch of the Anand chapter. Great job, guys. And you put me in a tough spot, putting me after Dr. Ankita and Vikas. And, it's a tough act to follow, but I'll try nonetheless since you've invited me. Uh, Relevant question, really. And what I can think about really is that, Colonel Amit, uh, even if you look at the last 6 to 7 months, clearly one trend that emerges is that you've got to look at the here and now and work accordingly. Let me explain what I mean by that. And when it comes to the HR fraternity, I think across the board, they've done a fabulous job of handling what has undoubtedly been life transforming, right? The phase one, where, as Vikas alluded, there was a lockdown which was announced March 24th, and suddenly the only word that one could refer to as an HR leader was survival. And in that phase, what really rose to the surface was leveraging one specific aspect of human resources, which is the administration part. How do we shut our offices? How do we ensure the safety of our employees? If employees are required at work for those critical essential activities, how do we ensure they come in safely and ensure that they are also protected at the same time? Accordingly, also it became important to ensure that not only were employees safe and sound, but whatever business could be continued, retrieved, could go on. So that whole phase, or the initial phase, ended up being about survival. And very clearly, if not a strategic reset, I think HR leaders managed to do this realignment, so to speak, and recalibration, and managed to keep pushing forward. Uh, Post that, you came to another phase, which I would term as the phase of retrieval, where once the base was set, I think the entire organization realized that work had to continue. You had to continue delivering for your clients, keep the billing cycles going on, because only that would help the business over the long term. And that's where the entire focus of the HR fraternity then moved to another key HR deliverable, which is driving employee engagement. And we've all heard of stories. We are all familiar with it, maybe at a personal level also, that our love affair with work from home is actually ended. Much like the girlfriend who dumped us, this whole fascination with just sitting at home, working from the couch, has already evaporated. And therefore, what HR leaders have had to do is to step in the form of counselors, in the form of buddies, try and arrange some stress relieving activities. Not easy task, not an easy task by any measures, I'm sure you'll agree. But having said that, they've done a fabulous job there. Now we stand at what is a very, very critical phase, and that is the phase which I call the phase of revival. Now, as Dr. Ankita pointed out, you've got to look at the business also, right? You've managed to maybe, with a few minor tweaks here and there, realign your cost structures. But the world of the future is going to be very different. And the way Vikas said, completely offline to online pivot, a lot of organizations are facing that at their global level. And how do you then realign or revive your entire workforce to move in that new desired direction? After all, for a country like ours, where the most optimistic scenario is talking about 10% degrowth of the GDP, that's something that each one of us at every level of the company's hierarchy needs to think about. And HR, by design, is going to be at the boardroom in taking some of those sharp decisions. There is where I see the data, and I think briefly Dr. Ankita did mention on that. I completely agree with her. Is what's going to actually be the fuel for 2021. Having said that, it all starts in the mind. I've heard the other speakers talk about it. Unless you get into the mode of being a hunter yourself, being resilient, scanning the layout for opportunities, you're not going to be able to strategically reset at your own individual level. And that's the guidance I would have for people who are listening in today.
Thank you for that, Vikas. And I think we have set the stage now for three essentials in a strategic reset that we are looking at. One is coming in from the organization, because survival and now growth in a very challenging environment has to be thought of. Second is from the individual, because they have to now take a hard look. Is what they have been doing, is that working for them? And if it is not working for them, what will work for them? And the third part is how we as a society have internalized these challenges and how we are responding to them. The way we support each other, the way we support entrepreneurs, or we support organizations who are from our country. The Prime Minister had given a very vociferous call that we have to be vocal for local, which means that the talent which is there in our country has to now rise up to the challenge. How we rise is what we are now going to be talking about. And the first question here has come in for Dr. Ankita. How do you motivate your online remote teams when the human connect is minimal or lacking? This must be somebody who's tired of Zoom by now.
I think, Amit, we have heard it enough that over communication is not bad. I'm definitely not against it. I think, yes, over communication is way better than no communication or less communication. But today, if at all, I think everybody would have their own challenges. As I said in the first question, I think balance has to be found. We should know, we as HR people, or even as managers or peers, we should understand what we are doing with the individual. Everybody is so wired, we assume or we misinterpret that work from home is easy, but we know it's not easy. Practically, either we are working throughout the day or we are taking care of the family at the same time, and things are not easy. When people want to connect with you, I think you should find those reasons, you should find that purpose. Unnecessarily bothering every individual or expecting them to participate in all these training events or all your so-called HR events, I think that should be avoided. But at the same time, when we talk about engagement or motivating employees or building that connect, we should go back to the basics. What are we trying to do? What's the purpose of our connect? What the individual wants to hear, what they want to know, and are we connecting with them on those particular pointers? So many a times we have faced that we get in touch with employees and we tell them, so how are things? And they would, after 5 minutes of discussion, they would say, yeah, but when are we starting with our appraisal process? So there are few very basic expectations from employees, and I think we should understand that. Once you realize what is needed, probably it becomes really easy to cater to their needs. And that identification, I mean, to summarize or to conclude, I would say connect will always be very reasonable, purposeful, once we identify the intent, what we want to do, but at the same time the need of the employees, that to what level they want to connect and for what things they want to connect with us.
Thank you for that, Vikas, Bansal or Dua. Would you want to chip in on this one?
I think Dr. Ankita has hit the nail on the head. Really, it's all about how employees need to be treated as individuals outside of the Zoom screens. I mean, somehow I think in this love for Zoom, we've gone away from just picking up the phone and talking once in a while. And I think if you can do some of those basics and just touch base without a work related activity, that can add tremendously. Also setting in place some boundaries in terms of whether that work window is 9:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. or whatever it is that works for you, because increasingly a lot of concern coming in from people is the fact that the boundaries have just gotten too blurred. uh, it's worse than the earlier days where bosses just expect you to be available on at their beck and call, whether it's a Saturday, Sunday, morning, evening. So I think some hygiene discipline set in that place will do wonders for employee morale.
I think that sets me up for the next question, and that would be coming to Vikas Bansal. The lines between work from home, work at home, and working while you're stuck at home have got completely blurred. You are still expected to be agile when you might very well be working in the kitchen, and that goes across genders. How does a person retain a semblance of motivation when the challenges are so amorphous? You can't put a finger on what is troubling you, but something is troubling the people who are stuck at home. So, how do they remain agile and nimble that the organization expects them and still cater to their own personal, as Vikas Dua said, their own needs while being at home?
So very interesting terminology which you mentioned: working from home, working at home, and working while being stuck at home. So the third one was pretty interesting. So Amit, yes, definitely. So till about 6 or 7 months back, we only heard about working from home. So let's say even I've worked with large corporates, and once in a while, let's say once in a month, we definitely enjoyed working from home, not having had to travel. Now staying in Gurgaon, not having had to travel, let's say 30 kilometers, saving on 2.5 hours of commute time. That's okay. Once in a month or twice in a month. That's okay. So working from home, we used to enjoy. That was more like a paid holiday, I would say. I'm being very honest. More like a paid holiday when we used to think about working from home once or twice in a month, but no longer so. So now, when we talk about working at home, I believe some of us have the luxury of having a dedicated space. Now, this is something which I really find amiss for many people. They have not really been able to demarcate a space. Now, again, because of the size of the house, that just might be a limitation. But for some of you who really can, I believe you really need to have a dedicated space wherein you can work. And don't be in that mindset of being stuck at home. You know, I know many of my friends have started venturing out. So we definitely, so I stay in Gurgaon. I have met up with some of my friends in Galleria or in some of the markets over the last few weeks. We've started doing that. And many offices have opened up. But when it comes to going to an office, you still have that stigma. No, we're still working from home. Believe me, now I don't know about not many organizations, but three of my closest friends have been going to their office over the last 2 months. I'm talking about people in Gurgaon and Delhi. So three of my closest friends have been going to office every single day over the last 2 months because their organization now permits them to. Now that they're handling teams, obviously they're all team members are not coming in every day. But somehow we're getting stuck. We're ready to move out to the market for an outing. We're ready to move out to the market to buy some essential stuff. But when it comes to leaving your house, if your organization is asking you to come to the office or giving you an opportunity to move out, you're still being stuck. So Amit, I really caught your word. Feeling stuck or being stuck at home. Many of us are kind of encompassing ourselves in an old shell and not be willing to move out of the house for work, for official work. That's really sad. That's sad. Because I spoke to a couple of my friends who work for some big IT companies. Now, I understand their IT companies have told them the office is shut till December 31st. That's perfectly fine. But for some of them who have an option, they're working for smaller companies, they're not really exercising that option. Now, you need to actually move out of your comfort zone. And I'm sure Vikas Dua will not agree with me when I say a comfort zone. He rightly pointed out that our affair with work from home is already ended. I mean, he gave a beautiful analogy of the girlfriend. But we're still stuck in our comfort zones. I still see many people because You have the luxury of getting up late. You have the luxury of having an 11 a.m. breakfast. You have the luxury of watching Netflix during the afternoon. You have the luxury of taking an afternoon siesta. Believe me, and I don't know to what extent Ankita would agree to it, but most of your employees are today in that comfort zone. It's very important to get them out of that. Now, I don't know what really can be done, but we really need to start getting back to our routine. See, it will not be a digital switch. You will not be able to ask your employees to come to the office, all of them on 1st of January 2020. That will not happen. I mean, we really need to move them out. We really need to get that energy flowing. And I would really agree with Dua now on this. We really have to get that bonding together, and people are moving out. So, with all precautions, my earnest request is to not be stuck at home, but start moving out and start visiting your office occasionally if your office permits. Do not be in your comfort zone.
And the way to get out from this mentality would be probably the companies can come up with the idea selfie at the office gate. If not enter and work, at least come and take a selfie and go back. But get out of the house, dress up. Because I think we have run out of shorts and t-shirts that we can wear, and we are itching to get back into our formals. As we can see, Vikas Bansal is there. That gets me to the skills of the future. The question would be coming into Vikas Dua. There has been a lot of talk about skills of the future. Well, the future has arrived. Skype didn't work, we went on Zoom. So there were ways in which the future arrived unannounced, and then it surprised us. What are the surprises that we should prepare for going ahead in the next 3 months that you would want us to know about?
Oh, for that question, I'll have to ask my wife because she has answers for everything. So I unfortunately don't. But on a more serious note, I think these disruptions are, going to be par for the course. As some, leaders much more accomplished have said, I mean, this pandemic is possibly just one of the first. So this volatility that we are now seeing is something that will probably not be the last. If it's not Beep, I'm not taking the name because Colonel Amit, you actually forbade us from saying so. But if this Beep 19 is going to pass away, maybe we'll have Beep 20 sometime later down. So the important thing to realize is that the skills of the future, difficult to put a hand to it. But what clearly stands out today is that in whatever we do, I think ability to navigate technology, understand technology, use it seamlessly, both from a development standpoint and a content consumption standpoint, will be the key. Because I don't think much any area of our lives which is untouched by technology today. Whether it's running a program like this, or running an organization, interacting with your clients, interacting with the students if you're an academic institute. So from a thought process standpoint, we have to think digital first, and whatever we do, should somewhere incorporate that right at the conception level itself. That's what I firmly believe.
So with the digitization part, I think the important question comes in. We have responded beautifully. In the last 6 months, we have taken to online activities like fish to water. We are now recovering in a manner that Vikas Bansal said that we need to get back to the way we were. Now to thrive, we will have to accept a few changes which have happened. We can't go back to where the things were. Have we seen our teams become much more responsive and responsible? Should this be a good practice which should continue even, say, when the offices open up? Dr. Ankita, the question would be that should the managers and the leaders give more power to the teams of the way they have been able to respond individually? The agile way of working in institutions and organizations which had not considered it feasible before have responded with more agility, and their teams now are itching to live in this way more. How do you think this is going to pan out? Are we going to be, should we go back to where we were, continue with what we have, or make something new?
I think, Amit, there is going to be a hybrid model. I don't think we are going back to where we were, and I don't think we will stick to what we are today, at 100% level. So when we talk about digital literacy, or we talk about virtual collaboration, or when we talk about adaptable approach, I think every individual, each manager, and like Vikas Dua and Vikas Bansal, they were talking about, individuals taking up that charge. I think we will come up with the right mix for the organization and for the individuals as well. When we talk about future or the future skills, I don't think a digital part is going anywhere. It will further, expand or exponentially expand. The usage is gonna become more. Uh, more considerably higher than what we see now. So if at all you have to empower or enable your people, and if you have to keep a part of it as is or probably increase that, I don't think they are wrong. But there are few pockets where these things would not help, right? When you want to meet people, or that pat on the back theory, you have to be with individuals. When you're talking about outbound trainings, I don't think digital will ever be as impactful as, one to one. So everybody knowing that where we are headed tomorrow and what's the agenda, what's the purpose, we have everything. It's very much like a buffet. You just have to pick what suits you best for that particular day and for that particular scenario, and you have to prepare or get a right mix for yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Ankita. And that gets me to the next question for Vikas Dua. Community. We have been faced with a crisis which has made us more isolated. I think this is a stage in our evolution where we have been very much connected and at the same time isolated. Do you think when we look ahead, this isolation will have an impact on how the individual teams respond? Are there going to be issues about integrating back into the workforce for people who have been used to staying alone for whatever time?
Excellent question, Colonel. And in fact, very ironically, I would answer that if I talk about myself personally, uh, this entire episode or journey that we are now part of, I have felt that it has actually expanded my community, and rather than making me more isolated. And I'm sure, Dr. Ankita, Vikas, I mean, we are all people who've connected in the last few months. I mean, that's the beauty of this whole new age. And therefore, somewhere I come back to the point which I think earlier Dr. Ankita and Vikas have also referenced, is the way we've actually navigated and handled the entire change. Right? I mean, it could have been easy for us to limit our connects and just stay engrossed with our Netflixes and the Amazon Primes. But what has worked well is that today, thanks to such technology, and more importantly, the willingness of people of the order of Dr. Ankita, Vikas, and others, that you can actually reach out to them, have a conversation which is value adding to both sides, and you never know where that journey may take you 3 months, 6 months later. And therefore, it all comes down to what are you willing to do, how are you taking this entire change and adapting to make yourself successful in the future.
Thank you for that. And Vikas Bansal, the next question coming on to you from Vivek Chadda. This is the same thing which Vikas was just mentioning. What is the mindset reset which is required now for job seekers? Because the complete paradigm has changed. The type of jobs you're looking at, the type of roles you're looking at, and even the industries, has that gone through a complete change? Your views, please.
So we were always talking about things like passion economy, gig economy. I believe the moment is now. Again, it's a fantastic sentence that I look up to. The moment is now. So that thing is finally arrived. I was lucky enough to have graduated from an IIM and worked in regular corporate jobs for close to, let's say, 20 years. I don't see that happening with the next generation. Sadly so. I mean, see, a lot of the jobs, even which I have worked with over the last so many years, will no longer exist in a, let's say, full-time role. You really won't require more of these strategic consultants in a full-time role. So when you see those things happening around you, first of all, is to be accepting those changes. That's the most hardest part of we as human beings, that the resistance to change. So first of all, you need to accept that the moment has come. The changes are there to stay. So some of these roles will no longer exist. I mean, I'm sure there have been multiple researches done by some of these large organizations. As many as 20 to 40% of the full-time roles will vanish in the next 2 to 4 years. Now, you as an individual, if you were just gunning in for a great education and then being employed with a big industrial house for that, or a big corporate business house for the next 20, 30 years, my dear friends, it's not going to happen with most of you now. Or let's say at least 20, 40% of you, it's not going to happen that way. So it doesn't mean that the opportunities are lost. The opportunities are there, but in a different avatar now. So you need to be more responsive to these opportunities. That's where I talk about understanding your talents, inherent talent, inherent abilities, inherent strengths. So you need to be mentally prepared now to be working, let's say, on projects rather than working with an organization for the next 5, 10 years. Opportunities will be immense. And now as the world opens up, I mean, I again see that happening for myself. Earlier, my audience was limited only to North India. That's as far as I could travel. I mean, I did a few sessions last weekend and I have some registrations happening from Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, US, Canada. I just can't name the number of countries that I have registrations from. So, I mean, new opportunities will open up, but just be more acceptance, just have more acceptance to change. So, that's what I would say.
Thank you for that. And panel, we have hit our 45-minute hard stop. The end quote that I will leave you with is, opportunity just did not knock at our door. Opportunity has blasted the whole house down. We have now the opportunity of constructing it the way we like it. We can put escalators, we can put lift, we can build a Burj Khalifa. Nobody is stopping us. Least of all a crisis. And the strategic mindset that the HR leaders possess will help us get us there. Thank you for your views. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to the audience. We had an amazing 45 minutes, and Preeti, exactly on time. Back to you.
Thank you very much for that, Amit. So it's time for me to officially say our thanks once again, word of thanks. First of all, to the audience for spending your 45-50 minutes with us on this Mahadurga Ashtami and a holiday. So really appreciate all of that. Thank you to the panel, my dear friends, Ankita, Vikas Dua, and Vikas Bansal. Amit, thank you for beautifully moderating and hosting this session. Thank you to Echo Events for streaming this live for us. This is Preeti Chaudhary saying our goodbyes on behalf of all the panel and my host and moderator, our dear friend Amit. Until the next time, please stay safe, stay sane, stay indoors, but also venture out, like Vikas Bansal says, with a mask and with the attitude and the agility to go out and make a difference. So, with that, thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank you.